Well, that was a fun weather day yesterday. Thanks for joining us. Kicking off your morning here on KCMO Talk Radio, as we also had some overnight thunderstorms come across the area, not nearly as severe as some of what we were dealing with yesterday when we had ping-pong-sized hail and 70-mile-an-hour winds around the Kansas City metro with some of those severe thunderstorms blowing through the area. So hopefully you made it out okay. There was a tumultuous drive home yesterday, I know, for a lot of folks. We were up here at the station and cutting in and giving you the latest forecasts and thunderstorm warnings and things of that nature. Thankfully, there was nothing tornadic yesterday in the Kansas City area. And that was, of course, the main fear. But still, you get flash flood warnings, you get hailstorms. There will be more damage people are waking up to today around Kansas City. Now, Evergy has about 14,000 customers without power. They peaked at about 42,000 customers without power yesterday as those storms were blowing through, but now down to just 14,000 customers without power. And I was driving home last night. It was about 5:15 in the afternoon after the storms blew through, and there were quite a few trees down along College Boulevard. But I had one guy yesterday. I'm up here at the station, and one guy calls up, and we were talking about this flooding that was happening on I-35 at West Penway Street. And that area always seems to get flooded pretty bad when we get these big rains and heavy storms. And this guy calls up the studio line, and he says to me, he goes, "Hey, man, I just it was like Hank from King of the Hill. He's like, "Hey, man, I'm a man's man. I'm a manly man. I got my 4x4, but I'll tell you what, that flooding down there at Penway Street's no joke, man. I barely got through it." I'm like, all right. And then he told me again he's a man's man. So he wanted to confirm he was a manly man, but that he had a tough time getting through those waters. Damn it,
Bobby, what have I told you?
Yeah, that's basically what it was yesterday. So it was pretty funny. And listen, we were on the air. We were doing what we thought we needed to do. Meantime, we had competitors just running the TV feed of their TV partners, and they bill themselves as the weather station in Kansas City. You know, anybody can pot up the TV station. I mean, my goodness, we were actually giving you radio coverage here on KCMO.
Yeah, credit to you and Mark, by the way.
Well, we try. We do our best.
We
do our best. Well, and Mark
Get the work of 3 or 4 men done, two of you.
Oh, my goodness.
Leaving Grandpa to sleep, by the way. I appreciate that, so thank you.
It's all about you, John. It's all about you.
I didn't have to do much yesterday other than pick up the girls, so that was nice of you.
You would have been in here for the night shift, John. Mark, you would have been here for the night shift, but the night shift did not turn out to be all that, at least for the Kansas City area, all that treacherous. I know there were some tornado warnings down to the southeast, Johnson County, Missouri, and heading on down that way towards Sedalia, but we did not have anything all that severe in the Kansas City area. But, Mark, you were on call for night duty, so you just got lucky last night.
Yeah, that was a close call. I was keeping an eye on it.
You were on it,
10:30.
Man. You were on it. But hopefully you made it through those storms okay. And now we move on to what is going to be potentially some rain here in the next hour or so. But after that, just a cool few days ahead. We are going to peak at 67 degrees today is the what we're looking at today across Kansas City. So as we get it rolling here on KCMO, the weather obviously a major story in our area and more severe storms around the country throughout the next couple of days. But continuing focus on the president, the former president of the United States, Joe Biden, and his prostate cancer diagnosis that came down on Sunday in a statement from his medical team. We are now at a place where if you bring up who knew what and when, you are called a conspiracy theorist.
I love that.
I mean, we used to save conspiracy theories for like who killed JFK, right? We used to save conspiracy theories for like really deep in the weeds on 9/11. Trust me, there are some crazy conspiracy theories out there. Joe Biden getting prostate cancer and then wondering who knew what when is not trolling in some kind of conspiracy theory. It's asking a very reasonable and frankly very obvious question that the American people deserve answers to. The only people who would not want to have that conversation are those who, I don't know, may have been complicit in the cover-up. This is House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries at a press conference yesterday. You mind hitting that for me, Mark? I think my screen might have just died on me here. Hakeem Jeffries.
Seems to me entirely inappropriate that at this moment in time, when President Biden is dealing with a serious and aggressive form of cancer, there are Republicans who are peddling conspiracy theories and want us to look backward at a time when they actually are taking health care away from the American people. No, as House Democrats, we're going to look forward. They literally are trying to take health care away from millions of Americans at this very moment in the dead of night. And Republicans want to fan the flames of conspiracy theories at this moment? No, thank you.
In the dead of night. I love he broke that one out. Wasn't that great?
That was like a novel.
Yeah. See, here's the thing. These politicians are basically publicly subsidized actors and actresses. And Hakeem Jeffries is like the guy who shows up for the high school play and he wants to be the lead actor, but he does such a terrible job in reading his lines, and he's the only one who realizes he totally bombed the audition. He's trying to sound very theatrical, and the presentation just sucked.
Like the teasers at the movies where the guy goes, in a world where Republicans are taking away Medicare in the dead of night. July 17th.
That's essentially what this was. I'm listening to this thing from Hakeem Jeffries, and I'm like, he can't be serious. He can't be. Two things can be true here at the same time, and it's not difficult for two things to be true. One, you wish Joe Biden well. Okay? You do. He's a human being who's potentially not going to live all that much longer. And while he was an awful president, he still is a man with a family. But at the same time, you can say, wait, who exactly knew what and when? And the reason that's where your mind has to go, if you're an honest broker, is because of what we've been finding out over the last few days with this upcoming book that actually comes out today from Jake Tapper about the health cover-ups of the President of the United States by not just his team, but a willing and complicit media that completely and utterly failed the American people. The media's job at its very core is to inform the American people about the powerful and the potential corruption happening in their communities, in their states, and in their country. It's to expose the people of power. And not only did the media not do that clearly with the President of the United States, they willingly, in some cases, covered it up and carried his water. And now Hakeem Jeffries is like, it's a conspiracy theory to have this conversation. No, it would be a conspiracy theory to not have this conversation. It would be a conspiracy theory to sit there and say, nothing to see here. Can't believe the guy got prostate cancer. Hope he's all right. Hope he's going to make it. That would be a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, it would be a conspiracy theory if Biden hadn't said anything.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to have a couple of doctors on today to get their perspectives on this. Dr. Prasanth Reddy, you may recall him. He ran for Congress against Sharice Davids last year. He's an oncologist, so as a cancer doc, he will give us his insight into this entire Biden health fiasco. And at 9 o'clock, it's a ways away, but hopefully you'll be streaming us all morning on the KCMO Talk Radio app, on your Alexa, on KCMOTalkRadio.com. My college roommate, he's a urologist, so this is what he does. He checks prostates for a living. He is going to be here at 9 o'clock. Dr. Patrick Leidig will be joining us on KCMO as a guy who's examined a prostate or two. Never thought I'd be having this conversation on the air with my college roommate, but here we are. That'll be happening at 9:05 here on KCMO Talk Radio. 913-408-7957. That's how you join us on 95.7 FM. We're always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. In 15 minutes, Black and Veach has big plans for Overland Park that we will tell you about. But coming up next, James Comey has spoken after the seashell fiasco. Oh, you don't want to miss it. So good. We'll share it next on KCMO Talk Radio. You know, if I was trying to not get in the crosshairs of President Trump and this administration, I probably wouldn't break my silence on a federal investigation that's being done on MSNBC with Nicole Wallace. I probably would not do that. I mean, if there is, like, when you look up MSNBC wine mom in the dictionary, you get a big picture of Nicole Wallace. That's what you see.
She's a real beauty.
She's right there in the dictionary when you look them up. So Nicole Wallace, used to kind of be a Republican. Amazingly, now she's just totally TDS, derangement up the wazoo, and is just carrying MSNBC's water. So James Comey, after this controversial Instagram post last week that he had to delete, that showed seashells on the beach that rolled out the numbers 8647. He has not spoken, obviously, publicly since then, last week. Well, he decided that he would break his silence on MSNBC and tried to explain why he posted this photo of these seashells on social media. Now, 8647, the implication there is, if you look at what 86 means in slang, some will interpret that as to kill or to off or to whack. And 47, well, Donald Trump is the 47th president of the United States. So James Comey says that he stumbles upon these seashells on the beach, and he posts this picture of these seashells on the beach that roll out 8647. And he's like, oh, man, look at these seashells I just stumbled upon. Wow, this is amazing stuff. He ends up deleting the post based on the backlash and the alleged threats of violence that 8647 spelled out. Now, before I get to what Comey said, do I think that James Comey was secretly trying to put out a hit message on the president of the United States? I don't. I actually think he was trolling and looking for attention for his book that's coming out this week. Do I also think that people, and I obviously am a 3-time Donald Trump voter, proudly. The 3rd time I voted for Donald Trump was probably the most enthusiastic I had been about voting for him, based on the 3 times I voted for him. Do I think it's a little rich for the ultimate social media troller, and that is Donald Trump, and his core base, of which I would say I'm a part of, to be a little bit across the line when it comes to acting very outraged over a social media post that could be interpreted multiple ways? Yes, because Trump does that on most days that end in Y. There is always something that is left to the interpreter on Trump's posts.
No, you're right. Some of that is tongue-in-cheek, TIC, but
yes,
a lot of it's not.
A lot of, yes, that's right. Fair. Exactly.
A little bit of it is.
I just, listen, I'm not a Comey guy, even though we went to the same high school. He went 40 years before me, but he's the most famous person probably to come out of my high school, Northern Highlands Regional High School, which I'm embarrassed to say that I went to.
You're dinging on him.
Yeah. I'm trying.
Doing your part.
Well, he certainly put himself back in the spotlight last week. So this guy goes on MSNBC yesterday, and I don't think he did himself any favors at all. Here was James Comey yesterday with Nicole Wallace.
You were back in the middle of a political firestorm.
Yeah, for walking on the beach with my wife. So I don't know how we ended up here. It never occurred to me that it was any kind of controversial thing, but...
I just strolled along the beach with my wife. I can't believe this happened. Whoa, poor little me. Little James Comey. I know I used to be the FBI director, and I can go on MSNBC whenever I want. But I'm the victim here. I'm just a little guy walking on the beach, and now I've got the DOJ breathing down my neck. I know. I can't believe what's happened to me.
That's the time we live in.
So take me back to the walk on the beach.
Take me back.
We were walking on the beach. We went to the beach to prepare for this week, which was the launch of my book.
Wait, what does that mean? I'm walking on the beach to prepare for the launch of my book. Could you sound more sanctimonious if you tried, James Comey? This is how I prep for my big book launch. I just go for long walks on the beach with my wife.
Referencing our review of documentaries yesterday. It's kind of like the weather ones.
Yeah, there I was. I saw it right over there. So I hauled up to the shop hollering, tornado.
I'm like, hey, what did I do to prepare for the show? Oh, I don't know. My kid woke me up at 3:30. I couldn't go back to sleep, so here I am. All right, drank some coffee, ate a couple eggs, and away we go. And that's how, like, most people aren't like, I'm preparing for my big book launch by going for a walk on the beach with my wife, you know.
And to think about the book and to prepare to answer questions about it. And we were walking back towards the road, and we saw in the sand someone had arranged shells with numbers. And Patrice.
Someone had arranged shells with numbers. Yeah, there was this man. His name was Kames Jomi, and he was just walking down the beach, and I bumped into Kames, and he just said, hey, I rolled out these seashells for you, and you won't believe it. It rolls out the numbers 8647. What are the odds? Days before my book launch, I'm on the beach, and then I just see this seashell interpretation of 8647.
My wife said, why would someone put an address in the sand? And I said, I don't know. And we stood over it, and I said, I think it's some kind of like political message. And she said, 86, when I was a server, she did a lot of working in restaurants, meant to remove an item from the menu when you ran out of ingredients. And I said, well, to me, as a kid, it always meant to leave a place, to ditch a place. I said, that's really clever. So then she said, you should take a picture of that. And I did. And I posted it on my Instagram account and thought nothing more of it until I heard through her that people were saying it was some sort of a call for assassination, which is crazy. But I took it down. Even if I think it's crazy, I don't want to be associated with violence of any kind.
It sounds like Alec Baldwin. He's just delusional.
You know what? He's a better actor than Hakeem Jeffries, though. I will say that much.
Yeah,
a much better actor.
Got it down. Maybe better than Alec, too.
I would agree with that. I would. This is, as a texter just noted here at 913-408-7957. So, Pete, this is a book promotion. Yes, this is a book promotion from James Comey. That's what this was. I'm not sitting here saying the FBI should waste a lot of time on James Comey's seashell Instagram post. But if you needed a reminder that this guy was a massive tool bag, well, you got it with this fiasco and this drama over the last few days. And I don't think anything legally is coming from this, but I do think the Trump administration and DOJ will enjoy tweaking James Comey a little bit. And frankly, let's be honest, it's good for Comey, too. It's good for book sales, as twisted and sick as that is. But, man, the fawning, I'm just the innocent former FBI director walking on the beach with my wife. Oh, boy, don't look over here. Okay, Jim. All right, Jim, that's enough. Coming up, Black and Veach wants to stay in Overland Park, but at what price? 6:34, you won't believe what Black and Veach has planned. We'll get to it coming up here in a minute on KCMO. Ed is in Gladstone. He's got a thought on James Comey going on MSNBC yesterday to totally feign ignorance about his 8647 seashell post that he deleted from Instagram last week. What's up, Ed? Good morning.
No, it's actually, if you really want to read his new book, I would suggest the same strategy I used to read his first book. Wait 6 months. I got it for $1.25 at the Dollar Tree store.
That sounds like $1.24 too much, but you know what?
No. Actually, if you read it, it explains him. He has been spineless since he was a little kid. He tried to play football in high school. His mom called up the coach and quit the team for him.
Is that right? That was in his book?
Yes.
And that would be at my alma mater because I went to James Comey's. Oh, gosh. Now I got to find the football coach. I could probably track down the football coach if he's still alive and get him on the air and find out how big of a pansy Comey was.
Okay. In addition, he claims he was bullied during school, high school and stuff.
Yeah.
So instead of confronting them, he goes into great depth about how he avoided them. He took, walked back home through alleyways. He avoided. It's a perfect. I don't understand why he published that book. It explains him to a T. He is a spineless, mealy-mouthed, worthless waste of human protoplasm.
Well, I can tell you this much: there was no back alleyways in our town. So I don't know where Comey was walking to get home from school, but it wasn't through a back alleyway. That much I can tell you for a fact. That is funny, though. Good job there, Ed. That's well done, my man, bringing something to the table on James Comey's first book. Now he's got book number 2 coming out this week. I'll wait 6 months. I'll maybe get it for $1.25. I still think that's too much money, but I appreciate the tip there. So Black & Veatch here in Overland Park has big plans, and they are looking for $250 million in subsidies from Overland Park to make it happen, to keep their headquarters here in OP, right down the road from where we are on College Boulevard. Here's the report last night from Fox 4 here in Kansas City.
Black & Veatch wants to tear down its headquarters out here and put a park in its place. But around that park, they would build an all-new world headquarters with residential, retail, and even a hotel. Mayor Kurt Skoog says the idea fits with the vision of Framework OP, an idea the city has had to transform the College Boulevard office corridor for nearly a decade.
Part of that is taking a property like Black & Veatch, which is a building surrounded by parking lots, and transforming that into a more mixed-use community.
The company is asking the city to create a redevelopment district, which would grant them $227 million in TIF funding and about $20 million in CID funding, or about 22% of the total $1.1 billion project. The move would assure Black & Veatch keeps its 2,200 employees in Overland Park and comes on the heels of an announcement just last month. Fiserv was relocating 2,000 employees to Overland Park and Hesperia right down the street.
Companies that are making the decision that Overland Park is the right place for them to have their office location, to attract talent to their work, retain employees, and be successful in Overland Park.
Black & Veatch echoed that sentiment today, saying that a new headquarters would help them retain and attract talent and meet clients' evolving needs.
So now Black & Veatch is going to be asking the city of Overland Park for potentially $250 million in TIF funding that they can use to develop the Black & Veatch headquarters along College Boulevard. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying to myself, okay, they're here. They've got 2,200 employees. They want to build out very much like the Royals. This is basically like the Kansas City Royals. Build an entertainment district, figure out other ways to make money. Hotels are part of the equation. They want to build out apartment buildings, all things that it's not clear to me Overland Park needs more of. But once again, when I hear the mayor, who I like, I mean, I know Kurt Skoog. I've talked to him, obviously, on the show. I've talked to him privately. I think he's a good man at his core. But I really don't understand this idea of we've got to do this because we've got this College Boulevard, obviously, stretch that is heavily commercialized. And that commercialized stretch allows us to, in the eyes of the city council, keep property taxes, in their estimations, relatively low, at least when it comes to mill levy rates. And that's great, but nobody pays their property taxes and says, well, at least my mill rate is lower than Olathe or Lenexa. People talk about their property taxes in hard dollars. They don't talk about it through mill rates. So we've got to get out of this business of saying, well, our mill rates are low because of commercial development. But then on the back end, if we're dishing out $250 million in TIF funding to these companies, what are we really doing here? What's the value here at its very core?
You know, it sounds nice when you say it's residential in terms of a project. Residential. Not as sexy when you say, hey, apartments and retail. Yeah. Oh, like on every corner down Metcalf now? Yes. 79th and 80th?
Yes.
It's not quite as big or grandiose sounding then, is it?
No, you're exactly.
But they mean apartments.
They mean apartments. They mean retail.
Yeah.
They mean, mixed use, restaurants maybe on the first floor.
No low barrier shelter with this.
How
about that?
Probably not. You're right about that. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, this is what Overland Park basically is everywhere else. Right? I mean, this is what Overland Park has become.
This is just for Black & Veatch to make more money.
Yes,
that's
exactly. And that's fine. Like, I'm all about Black & Veatch should make as much money as they possibly can.
That's right, Bobby.
I just don't think they need the taxpayer to help them do it. I mean, at least with the Royals, you say that there is a general entertainment value and city pride factor that is in the equation. At least you say that with a sports team. Even if you don't go to the games, there's inherent value from a city pride perspective that you can at least somewhat justify doing this stuff with sports teams. Yeah, we love having Black and Veach here. 2,200 employees is great. But no one's like, yeah, I live in Overland Park, home of Black and Veach, baby. That's right.
Not wearing my Black and Veach hat and shirt on a Friday.
No, Mark's got his Royals gear on like he does every day this time of year. He's got his Royals hat, his Royals tee. Mark, you don't have a Black and Veach hoodie as part of your arsenal, do you?
I don't.
Okay.
Now, if they want to donate one to me, I'll wear one.
Mark will wear anything that is free. He's a big free clothing guy. So if you've got merch for him, he'll wear it. But this is the kind of thing that people just throw their hands up and they say, what am I paying taxes for when the big guys don't have to do it? Or at least, they get a lot of help along the way. And if Black and Veach is going to say, well, who knows? We might just pick up and go somewhere else. You realize the cost associated with all this to pick up and just leave with 2,200 employees? Overland Park city council members I'm seeing on social media are like, this is why we're a great... And Overland Park is a great place. It is. I'm not denying this for a second. It's a fantastic place. It's always rated as a high, value place to live, top 10 in some cases in the country based on some of the rankings. But remember what made you great. Let's not forget that. What makes Overland Park great is not apartments. It's not mixed use. It's not handing over the farm to Black and Veach. That's not what makes it great. It's not. It's the everyday residents. And yes, there's a lot of Black and Veach residents or Black and Veach employees who are also Overland Park residents. I get that. But if you're a city council member, you can't be like, yes, this is what makes us great, and Black and Veach wants to stay here and invest in Overland Park. They're here. It's a lot of work to pick up and go. And now they're shaking you down for $250 million, and you guys are acting like, yes, this is why they love us. If they love you because you're giving them $250 million, they don't love you like you think they do. Jordan Hudson does not love Bill Belichick because he's a really handsome guy. Okay? Bill Belichick is powerful, is famous, is worth tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, and that's why she has any interest in him. Overland Park is fantastic. It doesn't need to prove itself with $250 million TIF, and this is not anti-progress. Let me just say this, too. This is not like, Pete, you're just anti-progress. No, I'm not. I'm not anti-progress. I know Overland Park, as the second largest city in the metro, is going to have, apartments as much as we rag on them and make fun of them because they overdo it. We understand it's going to have a diverse economy and a diverse housing selection. It's not anti-progress. But it's like, man, just realize what your residents have been through here over the last few years when it comes to cost of living. And bragging about this stuff and these potential Black and Veach deals, and I guess this will be decided coming up on Wednesday, or it'll be discussed at least on Wednesday in Finance Committee. At least understand the average person is going to see no inherent benefit from this $250 million potential TIF. And once you can accept that and at least frame the conversation through that prism, at least then the people in charge of being honest brokers. Speaking of Guy, we got about 20 tickets left for his event coming up here on June 12th in Kansas City. We will be at Boulevard in their suite for dinner, drinks, meet and greet, and a show with Guy Benson. I'll be there. Keatsman will be joining us. And we've only got about 20 tickets left, a couple of tables. If you want to buy the table, you get the discount. KCMOTalkRadio.com is where you can get in and buy those tickets right now while they are still available. It's going to be a fantastic evening, and we're looking forward to it here on KCMO Talk Radio. Now, in the Crossroads yesterday, there was a meeting. It's happening on Monday mornings at 9:30, where business owners are invited in the Crossroads District to meet with KCPD about, of course, the extensive crime issues that are unfortunately plaguing that part of town. KCTV5 reported on it yesterday.
Well over a dozen community members packing the third floor at the Bower, discussing ongoing safety issues in downtown Kansas City. The conversation was led by Kansas City Councilman Crispin Rea and officers with the Kansas City Police Department. They highlighted this weekend's sideshow bust and said crackdowns will continue. Local business owners also bringing up property crimes and break-ins, saying there's been steps in the right direction, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
Crossroads is a wonderful neighborhood for our city, and it's just really a shame that all these small businesses are getting hit one right after another. So I think people care and they want to support each other, and we decided to put this team together to talk about it.
So that was KCTV5 yesterday, and once again, they're going to be meeting every Monday morning, 9:30 in the morning at the Bauer Event Space. The next one is happening on the 26th, so that'll be on Memorial Day, Monday morning. They're going to be there, yes, on Memorial Day, Monday morning at 9:30. So this is obviously something that's got a lot of attention. Stacey Graves, the KCPD chief, was on the show yesterday, and she talked about this past weekend where they made 80 arrests. They confiscated a bunch of weapons. And she made sure to note that when it comes to these street racers in particular, there are two major issues for these Crossroads businesses. One is the street racing. The other is the break-ins. The street racers are coming from all over. They're not just Kansas Cityans.
Oklahoma.
Okay.
We've had folks from Texas. We've had people from all over coming into Kansas City. And, this is a culture across the United States. I think I've mentioned that before. I talk to other major city chiefs across the United States, and they're experiencing the same thing in their cities. And, we all share how we're trying to combat that, what legislation we request and get through, and how we, are escalating our enforcement tactics.
That was Stacey Graves yesterday here on KCMO. The entire interview is up on the podcast, Apple or Spotify. Search Pete Mundo, and you can find it there. So, you've got out-of-town thugs, for lack of a better word, who are getting involved in these street races and these sideshows. And it's been an absolute mess for businesses. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I go out to dinner, the loudest noise I want to hear are my kids. That's it. I don't want to hear drag racing out on the streets. I don't want to hear sideshows out in the middle of the road. I'm not going to pay money to listen to that. It's why mostly I've decided to avoid the area. I mean, there have been a couple of times we've gone down to the Crossroads, but I would go more. But I'm not interested in that. And the city has finally woken up. Finally. And listen, I was not trying to get the chief in trouble yesterday, but one thing that I think there's a sentiment that is out there with KCPD of finally we can just do our job. We don't have to worry about a woke prosecutor in Gene Peters Baker being more interested in going after cops than criminals. We finally have a city council that, because it's gotten so bad, is realizing, hey, we've got to do something about this. All their defund the police nonsense and garbage from 5 years ago is, at least for now, out the window because the situation's untenable. We're finally at a place after a half a decade of malaise that we can just do our job, John, and it's got to be freeing for these cops.
Absolutely. It means towing and impounding vehicles means the show doesn't move to Raytown.
Yeah.
Move to Olathe, because as the chief pointed out, this is more about like just getting social media hits, right? Mm-hmm. It's not so much, even the thrill busters, they want to be filmed and hit on the media. So it's going to move around, and once Kansas City shuts it down. But if Kansas City can tow the vehicles, then they're not able to perform next week at an intersection near you.
Yeah. And even a couple of folks who were at the Dave Ramsey show at the Music Hall 2 Fridays ago, they reached out to me on social media, and they said as they were getting out of the show Friday night at like 9:30, a bunch of guys came flying down the sidewalks and the streets, doing all their crazy stunts and their whole routine. And it's like, that is not what Kansas City needs right now. That's not what Kansas City is supposed to be about. And they've got to fix the problem. They have no choice. You can't talk about building downtown baseball stadiums when people don't want to go downtown. When they're afraid to go down and get a bite to eat and go to a show potentially because of this nonsense. They just want no part of it. So, I'm not going to let these people off the hook from the standpoint of what they were saying 5 years ago is a lot different in many cases than what they're saying now. But I will appreciate the fact that they've come around on this, that you can't be soft on crime. You cannot. It's the same thing with raising kids. If you never punish your kids, what do you think's going to happen? If you let the inmates run the asylum, what do you think's going to happen? If you let these criminals run around Kansas City with no ramifications and they have no fear of getting arrested or put in jail, what do you think's going to happen? What do you guys say? You want to try to get a grant here for KCMO Talk Radio? You on board?
They're giving those away, but I think it's limited qualifications.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not black. John's not black. Mark, you black?
Black watch.
You got a black watch?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, it's too bad. Kansas City's gift, as it's being called, generating income for tomorrow, announced a new $100,000 grant that it will be awarding to a local black-owned business. Applications are now open. The organization said the goal is to help accelerate the growth of a high-performing black-owned business. Well, if it's already high-performing, why do we have to dump government money into it? Can someone explain that to me? I mean, I love that.
I had several questions when I read that article, too.
Yeah. The organization says in a news release, the new $100,000 grant represents a significant step forward in the organization's mission to be totally racist. No, sorry, that's not what it says here. The organization's mission to close the racial wealth gap by investing in businesses that have the potential to become significant employers and economic drivers in their communities.
The only gap I was interested in is closing the gap between the money spent and invested versus the amount of jobs created.
I would love to know what that equation is, if one exists. Since the inception back in 2020, KC Gift has distributed more than $1.8 million in grants to 77 black-owned businesses, resulting in the creation of more than 135 new jobs. Now, how do you even know for sure if the grant is the reason for the creation of 135 new jobs? How is it not just as likely that the businesses, which were already high performing based on their standards, would have created 135 new jobs anyway without getting a grant from the city of Kansas City, Missouri, that is based on race? And I don't even know how this is legal. I guess no one really wants to challenge it because it costs money to challenge this stuff. So, it's got to be some rich person that just wants to piss off Kansas City and make a point to challenge this thing. I get it. You're going to fight this thing in court for what? Even if you're like, I want to get the grant. It's a $100,000 grant. By the time you're done with your legal fees, which are going to be in the tens of thousands of dollars, what's the point? So it's got to be somebody who's wealthy who just wants to stick it to Kansas City. But at its very core, I'm looking at the application here. Here are the requirements. Business must be at least 51% black-owned, located in Kansas City, Missouri, from 9th Street to Bannister, Truce to Hardesty, Southeast Kansas City, Raytown, or Grandview, must have generating revenue for at least 3 months, and annual revenue cannot exceed $1 million, and must demonstrate potential to create jobs. So it's actually a pretty low bar when you think about it. You have to have 3 months of revenue. I mean, I could put together a slapstick business in a day that generates revenue for 3 months. And then your annual revenue can't exceed $1 million, also not difficult to do. And then you got to be 51% black owned. That's not actually all that high of a bar. The question is, how is it legal? I know a lot of stupid things were done back in 2020. I get it. We took the Land O'Lakes Indian off the can and container of butter. We took Uncle Ben off the rice packet in the name of racial equity or something. We lobbied, and I say we as a culture, not us, lobbied for defunding the police as if somehow that was going to fix something. But then we also started giving grants and bragging about giving grants based on the color of your skin from your local municipalities. It's just absurd.
You have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
Thank you, Joe.
I'm thinking about what about the businesses on Southwest Boulevard that I think are largely would be Mexican.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We could use the term Hispanic, I guess, or Latino, but I think a lot of them are Mexican. So they don't get to apply.
No, of course not.
Not for them.
No.
But remember, we had a story about the Vietnamese coffee shop maybe a year ago and how that was kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I think it was down by the city market. Not for them either.
No. They don't qualify. That's not how this works. So I suppose one of us could maybe identify as black. I mean, I'm half Italian, and there may be some overlap there going back hundreds of years. I don't know. I'd have to do the old 23andMe and see if I can find some blackness in me. I don't think it's going to happen, so I don't think I can apply, but I'm going to do my best and see what we can come up with. I'll have Mark and John do that same thing as well, see if we can dig into their ancestry and just find any blackness whatsoever. I just want to help out the radio station, Get these guys some help on the other side of the glass with a $100,000 grant from Kansas City, Missouri. I mean, our call letters are KCMO. Can we get a little love here? Anything? No? Okay.
You mustard.
All right. I didn't think so. I just figured I'd ask. That's all. Figured I'd throw it out there and remind you that this stuff is actually being promoted by the city of Kansas City, Missouri. 913-408-7957. Our studio line and our text line on KCMO Talk Radio. Pete, are these businesses worth your Red Lobster money? Absolutely not.
I'm not worth your Red Lobster money?
No. Oh, geez, no. In the words of Pastor Funderburk, no way. They are not worth my Red Lobster money. I can't speak for you. I can only speak for myself. So, hey, maybe it's you, though. Apply. I'd like to see someone apply. Or maybe could I just identify as black? If you can switch your gender willy-nilly, can I just identify as black for the day? I don't know. Rachel Dolezal, this thing,
Jessica Krug was the one
Yeah.
local Barstow.
That's right. She went to school with Mayor Lucas. Good point. See if we can work that out.